Hey Lakeway, Pastor Mike here with a little bit of midweek motivation for you. You know, as Christians, we talk all the time about faith, but what is faith? The Bible talks about faith being faithful, living faithfully, and having faithfulness, having an attitude of faith or living in faith. But what does that mean? What is faith? And it's a vitally important question because the Bible says that without faith, it is impossible to please God, and that it is by faith that we are saved from an eternity separated from all that is good, separated from God, the essence of love. So faith and having faith is vitally important. But what is faith? You know, some people think of faith as belief, and I'm not sure that that's an accurate definition of faith. I mean, if I were to strike a match, don't do this at home. If I were to strike a match and hold my hand above it, I have belief that will burn my hand. Ow! And it does. Now, was that an act of faithfulness? Because I trusted that it would do that it would burn my hand, and it did, so I was proved right? Was that faith, or was that simply an act of stupidity? I tend to believe the latter. Here's the problem. When it comes to faith and explaining faith to a non-believer, it can seem infantile, naive, and maybe even stupid. And that's because faith is nonsense. You know, I listened to a sermon by one of my favorite authors the other day, Erwin McManus, and he described faith as nonsense. Let me explain. What color is this shirt? I mean, it's orange and blue. How do you know that? Because you can see it. You are using a sense, sight. And through that sense, you can ascertain what color this shirt is. But how would you describe it to someone who has been blind from birth? You can't, because they don't have that sense. You can hear my voice, and you might be able to detect that it's got an accent of some kind, somewhat of a mixed up one, a little bit of Canadian, English, Texan. There's something not right with it. Something doesn't sound right. Well, how do you know that? Because you are using your sense of hearing. And through your sense of hearing, you're able to detect that something's off with the way that this guy speaks. But how would you describe that to a person who has been deaf from birth? You can't, because they don't have that sense. It's exactly the same with smell. There's an aroma in here right now of sulfur. This room smells of sulfur right now because I struck that match. Now, you can't smell it because you're not here. I can smell it because I'm using my sense of smell. But you can't smell it because you're not here. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And how would you describe that smell to someone who was born with congenital anosmia? No sense of smell. I mean, you could use words like sharp or acrid, but they would not be able to relate to what you're describing because they don't have that sense, the sense of smell. Now, here's the thing. You can't smell the match. But in essence, you can, can't you? Because as soon as I said something about the smell of sulfur, something in your brain triggered a memory. And that memory, the smell of sulfur, a burning match, kind of brought you right there. And even though you're not here, you can, in essence, smell that match. Faith is nonsense. We have these five senses: sight, touch, taste, hearing, and smell, that help us experience the reality of the physical world around us. They connect us to it in a very real sense. We can feel it, we can hear it, we can see it, we can smell it, we can taste it. It is very real to us. But faith is nonsense. Faith is what connects us to the immaterial world, the unseen world, the spirit world. And trying to explain faith to a person who does not perceive faith can seem like nonsense. It's like explaining orange to that person that doesn't have the sense of sight. Now, here's the thing though. If you were blind, does that mean that orange doesn't exist? Absolutely not. And if every person on the planet were blind and humankind never ever had the ability to see, does that mean that orange doesn't exist? Absolutely not. It's exactly the same with faith. Just because you can't see it, touch it, taste it, Does that mean that the spiritual world that faith links us to does not exist? You see, faith for a person who struggles with the concept of faith, it's hard to get your head around. In fact, it's even hard for those who do understand faith to get their head around faith sometimes. How many times did Jesus say to his followers, "Oh, you of little faith"? I mean, they had seen his wonders. They had seen the miracles that he had performed. They'd seen the lame walk, the blind see, the deaf hear. They'd seen the dead come to life, and they still struggled with faith. After Jesus had been crucified, buried, and raised from the dead, the Bible tells us that he appeared to his disciples in Matthew and that they worshipped him, but some doubted. They struggled with faith. In John's account, where after his execution, the disciples, they're all huddled together, they're hiding, they're in a locked room, they're in fear for their lives, and Jesus appears amongst them, and he says, "Peace be with you." But Thomas is not with them. And later, after Jesus had left from that particular scenario, the disciples meet with Thomas and they tell him, "We've seen the Lord." So he has witnesses now, people that have actually seen it, but he still fails to believe them. He doesn't believe them. Even though he had seen all the miracles of Jesus and heard everything, when his trusted disciples, his trusted friends come to him and say, "We have seen the Lord," he said, No. Unless I put my hand in his hands and feel the wounds, unless I put my hand in his side and feel the wound, I will not believe you. And the Bible says that about a week later, under the same circumstances, they're all huddled together in the room again. And Jesus appears amongst them, and Thomas is with them this time. And Jesus says to him, "See, it is me. Touch the wounds in my hand. Touch the wound in my side. Stop doubting and believe." And it says that Thomas does that. He feels the wounds, and he feels the wound in Jesus' side, and he falls to his knees. He bows down, and he says, "My Lord and my God." And Jesus responds with an incredible statement. He says, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." What is faith? Where does it come from? This Sunday, we're going to dive deep into those questions. If you're a person who has struggled with faith, the idea of faith, the concept of faith, or you know people who struggle with this issue, this Sunday is for you. It's for them. Join us at Lakeway. Come to the church, 4000 North Colony Boulevard. We're practicing safe distancing, social distancing, and masks and gloves and all of that. You don't have to wear a mask, but I recommend that you do. Or join us online at lakewayonline.org. And we're going to dive into this question of what is faith? Where does it come from? How do I get it? I'm looking forward to it. Faith is one of my favorite topics. Hey, and if you want to get a head start on this, join me tonight, Thursday, June 25th at 7 p.m. virtually via Google Meet. And we're going to talk about faith. And maybe you can share your faith story with me. I'd love it if some people wanted to share their stories. Email me, text me, message me on Facebook, and I'll send you the link. Do it early. At 7 o'clock, I'm not checking it. And I'll send you the link. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to this Sunday. Have faith, y'all. I love you. Bye-bye.